Susan Shapiro Barish, welcome to the Bookaholic Podcast.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes, I'm very excited to talk about today's topic because I think it's one people don't really talk about or maybe don't even really exist. And your latest book, your latest nonfiction book is called Estranged: How Strained Female Friendships Are Mended or Ended. So delving into that because that's a very important subject for
It
women.
really is. And because Deirdre, we're raised to be good girls, stay best friends forever, we overlook it. We can leave a bad marriage or we can leave a bad romantic relationship, but we're not so geared to really leave these friendships.
Exactly. And I'll get into more of the comparisons a little bit later in the interview, but it is very important that we address this subject. This is the first time I've ever heard it professionally really addressed because, again, like you said, people expect women to be friends forever. It's perpetrated in books, it's perpetrated in movies. So it's all over the place. And we're best friends or friends until we're not. And first of all, you've written a lot of different books on a lot of different subjects. But why did you want to write this book at this time?
I This is my 18th book and it's just
Yes.
out now. And I've written 4 novels, and this is a book that I wanted to write for a good 7 years. And I have the 14 nonfiction books. For those books, I've been investigating how women feel for real compared to the faces we're supposed to wear. And how
Right.
many hats do we wear? And how do we feel as wives and single women, as mothers, daughters, mothers in law, daughters in law? How do we feel as rivals and foes? And why do we keep secrets? And so all of these and a book on sisters. So all these investigations are a way to give us the truth about how we're positioned in contemporary American culture. And for each
Mhm.
book, I interview at least 150 women, all
Yes.
different ages. This is 20 to 80 in this book.
Yes.
I'm looking for a very diverse group. So, all across the country, different race, religion, ethnicity, level of education, social strata, big cities, rural areas, suburbs. What do we feel for real? And what's so interesting is really doesn't matter if you graduated from an Ivy League or you didn't finish high school. If you're having a problem with a friend, if you're having a problem in a relationship with a child, with a mother-in-law, with any of it, we're all really feeling the same emotional need and longing.
Right.
Female friends. I had written a friend, I'm sorry, written a book in the early 2000s called Toxic Friends.
Oh,
And now what I was hearing was that women in my new research, especially the last 2 years, I was hearing of women able to leave the toxic friendships, not
yes.
how to deal with it, but to be empowered by leaving, which is really a new trend and it's a different click, if you will.
Yes. Let's dive into that because that will set the tone a little bit for what your book is about today. So let's give us 2 to 3 examples of what a toxic female relationship looks like. Because this is what I was alluding to earlier, that the toxic female relationships can also mimic some of the toxicity that we have in our romantic relationships, i.e., narcissist. So, just real quick, give us just 3 quick examples of the toxic female relationship.
First of all, you're completely right that it really is like a romance that goes bad. So we see a friend who is very close to you until something breaks you up. Could be another person, another friend. It could be a romantic where it becomes very triangulated. And now you're in a romance and your new partner doesn't like your friend and you're willing to really push her to the side. We're looking most recently in the last 2 elections, we're looking at women who are absolutely divided over politics or vaccine. which is really something that was never so dire before. There was
Yeah.
a lot more respect for the other side, and now it's really a deal breaker. And then
Yes.
we'll always get back to a very age old topic, and that is jealousy. So
Yeah.
I have a chapter called The Green Eyed Friend, because if your
Yes.
friend is jealous and you can feel it and you've witnessed it and endured it, you end up at some point just hitting too big an event in your lives to stay with her. So the jealousy is just too strong and there's just too much tension. And then I
Yeah.
have other, each chapter is a different type of person with whom we might do better to estrange.
I find that go back to your first example, and it's not always that maybe the new romantic partner of your friend does not like you. It's sometimes some female friends, once they get a romantic alliance on a romantic partnership, that person becomes their best friend. And then they just leave their girlfriends in the dust. Have you
So
found that?
it's very hierarchical, and I look at that too. Sometimes women will be you'll have a very close friend, and let me interrupt myself to say this book is only about our closest friend. This isn't
Yes.
about like your walking buddy or your Pilates friend or a colleague at work, but these are really where we've shared secrets, and intimacy is
Yes.
great and trust is supposed to be at the center of it. So,
Yes.
yes, when something comes between you, whether it's a friend or maybe you move away. I interviewed some women who said, my friend just started a new lifestyle and there was no room for me in it. When there is either an event or a change or a person that breaks you up, it really becomes, and this again leads into another chapter, hierarchical. I'm important, but I'm not as important as her new life or her new squeeze. And that's very
Right.
painful.
Yeah. It can be, especially if the dynamics are the one person is in a strong and or new or by contract married to a new best friend or partner, and the other person, the other friend is single. Sometimes it balances out if both friends are married, let's say, and they can understand, "Well, I've got my partner, I've got my husband or whatever, I got my wife, or and I have to put that first for now, and then we can go back to our friendship." But sometimes it's really totally imbalanced if there's a friend who is single and not in a relationship and tends not to be in a relationship and the other person is married. That can also
Yes.
derail.
So, and for women of all ages, what happens is we're together and we're having parallel lives, and it's very reflective. Your life is like mine, and then your life is not like mine. Can this relationship, this friendship sustain itself without it, or is it a deal breaker? And it
Right.
so much depends on the 2 people involved, but many women said, "She left me behind," or "She has no
Yeah.
time for me because she has kids," or "She has
Yeah.
no time for me because she's single and I'm stuck at home looking for a babysitter." So it
Right.
works. Yeah,
Yeah.
it works that you're no lo you're disparate and no longer on the same page.
Absolutely. And the latest blow is the dynamics of politics and social cultural things, like you said, anti-vaxxing or vaccine. And people just, I remember there was a time where, hey, you're just a Democrat, or hey, you're just a Republican, and you just vote. And then that's it. And we're
And
all
now it's a
together.
deal breaker. Now
But
it's a deal
now it
breaker.
is a serious deal breaker. People can't even have Thanksgiving dinners with family.
Yeah.
Some random person.
No, families. The
Yes.
in-laws, how about some of the women who said, oh, and that, let me interrupt myself again. In the book, I have one sister interview per chapter because sisters, having done a study in an earlier book on sisters, often say we don't need as many close girlfriends because we have each other. Well, what about when sisters break up? And what about,
Absolutely.
yeah, and for that, I heard a lot of it was over politics and not having the same values anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay, hold it right there. Then, of course, we know the third thing, jealousy. That's an easy one. We can always expect that.
No,
But sometimes it's not just, I don't know, it's just the way sometimes that jealousy comes about. I've had friends and you break up because of the wedding.
Oh, I
Be
have a few wedding stories in the book.
Yeah, because of
Absolutely.
the wedding, and all of a sudden, I had a few breakups because of a wedding.
Yeah, no, it happens, and even second wedding. Because I interviewed a woman who said, "This is my second wedding, but it feels like it's my first." They're the same jealous friends who's and then the ones who say, "I shouldn't marry this guy," and feel their opinion's more important than my choice. So, really what happens is that a very meaningful event or behavior gets in the way of the friendship. Another chapter that I have in the book is called The Wayward Friend. And that's important because that's when we're with a friend who we're pretty devoted to, and the relationship really is reciprocal in terms of caring. But one of them has either an addiction, a drinking
Oh,
problem, a drug problem. Do you become the enabler? How long can you be the enabler? And what does it do to you and your family? And
right.
so, how do women navigate that path? And are you
Yes,
really helping your friend? Is so
right.
those were very touching stories because all the caring and love is there, but it's a very troubled friendship because of this.
Absolutely, absolutely, and sometimes I would think in that respect, you'd have to make the hard choice to tell your friend, "While you are in this space, even though I
Exactly.
love you and I'll pray for you, I will support you in any positive directions that you're making, I have to step away until you go in a more positive direction. While you're in the negative direction, I have to step back and I have to step away."
And possibly that's the only way to really get your friend to do the right thing and get the help she needs. But the
Yeah.
enabling part is difficult. And then I also interviewed a lot of women, all different ages, who said that the betrayal was so great when it came to a friend. This is the thieving friend category. A boyfriend, a husband, a very important colleague, another friend. And they said, wow, my friend saw no boundaries, no respect. And it's ruined my life. And so those stories are also very serious.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You did interview a variety of women, and I will say one aspect for African American women of friendship are our sororities. And we join our sororities, like, of course, in college. So it's past that first grade buddy, it's past that high school buddy, it's our college friend and sorority sister or soror, as we say. And we're expected to have those friends for life and be dedicated to them under our various oaths in our various sororities. But did you come across any stories about any African American friendships where another sorority sister has to break up with another sorority sister?
I spoke with African American women, and the other aspect that I heard a lot in these relationships is familial. Our grandmas knew each other. Our mothers were friends.
Got
We
you.
grew up in the same church. We had the same community. We are part of a circle of friends. Yeah, a sorority and two college stories. But
Yes.
what about coming from the same town and the same background, but very much invested in the history. So that makes it hard to break up, and you feel like you're breaking so much more than just the two of you.
Absolutely.
And then how about the mothers who, for the younger women, when they would ask their mothers in different communities,
Right.
what is best? And what was so interesting is how much the mothers wanted it to work out, even though
Right.
it was something really reprehensible had happened.
Absolutely. I can see that. Maybe this is in some novels that I've read, but maybe girls from, let's just say, a Southern background and they go off to some all girls school. Oh, I can think of an all girls school I know of in Virginia and one in Winston-Salem. And are supposed to be, that's another form of sisterhood. It might not be a sorority, but that's another united
Oh,
thing in
yes.
girls' school, and you're supposed to be bound to your all-girls school friends forever and ever, but not everybody, is coming from that same direction.
There's was one interviewee who told me that the sorority sisters weren't really supportive, that they didn't that they feigned support, but they were jealous. She was a great student. She was really attractive. The boys liked her. So we see this so much. And based on my research for a book I wrote called Tripping the Prom Queen, The Truth About
Yes.
Women in Rivalry, I think a lot of what happens with these friendships is the cultural message for us is almost greater than the connection we have. So we're raised in a culture, sadly, of limited goods, not enough pie. So you're always set to compete in the workforce against other women.
Yeah.
If your best friend gets engaged, you say to yourself, what about me? You've with this like magical theft concept that maybe there's no one left because it's such a limited goods life that we lead, and that has to change. And
Yeah.
friends have to
Absolutely.
be they have to be authentic. We have to support our friends' choices and happiness because
Exactly.
if not, who are we?
Correct. I understand 100%. Now, I'm going to give you an example, and this is from my own personal files. I had a friend that I met through an African American group.
Mhm.
And so through that, though, we had to do various things in the group. But she and I became fast friends and then close friends. And she has 2 children. I have 2 children. We were just really good friends. And she was one of those friends who I shared a lot with. I could let my hair down with, etc. But every time we have our 2 sons, our oldest children, her son was a little older than mine. And I would say something to the effect of, in front of her husband and her, and my husband might be present in some of the instances. "Oh, these 2 guys are the same," or "They got a lot in common." And this friend would kinda not smirk, but draw back, and no, you could just tell by her body movements, her facial expressions that she was thinking, "No, our son is much better than yours." Much smarter, much better, but whatever, and that used to really irk me, and I never did address that with her, but as time rolled on, there was something that happened between us, and I can't really pinpoint it, but we were friends until we were not. We were
So
friends
this
until
happens, right? But that was really, to me, falls into what I write about respect. If you're not really treating each other as equals and there's not enough respect, the friendship can't really sustain itself. And then it sounds to me like you just grew apart.
Yeah, yeah, and I know what happened. I know what happened. I this particular friend had moved to another state, and so my husband and youngest son, we were vacationing maybe a spring break in that particular state, and, I had always envisioned that I would visit her somehow, some way when I was down there,
Mhm.
and that particular time was not a good time. It was not a good time in my family, with the dynamic of my family that I was traveling with. There was a major catastrophe that happened while we were on the trip. So, I had told her, I said, "I can't come see you. I cannot come see you." And I said, "There's a lot of things," without revealing everything that happened, I said, "I just can't come visit you because it's not a good time for me and my family to come visit you." Like, from our side, not from anything that had to do with her. And she never understood it. She never got it. She was just only concerned about me coming to visit her. She wasn't thinking about what has happened in my friend's life. What is she talking about? She never gave me grace or anything, and that catastrophically broke our friendship. And so when she came back to my state to visit for a function for the group that we had been in, we didn't sit together. Normally, we would have sat together, and she was hanging out with somebody, and she didn't even tell me she was coming. She didn't even tell me. She did it as a surprise to everyone. But when I saw her, I was like, "Wow, you didn't tell me that you weren't coming." And she made some kind of snide comment in front of a group of people. I said, "Okay, I'll be letting her go."
So you really estranged from her.
Yes,
And
I did.
in the book, I have estrangers, which is what you were, the person who estranges, and the estrangee, who is the one who is at the receiving end of being estranged. And
Mhm.
for
Mm.
both, it's painful, but sometimes in my study, women, even both sides, said maybe it's for the best. But
Yeah. Yeah.
this spread really, to me, with just hearing it briefly, sounds like the stories that I uncovered where women felt that they really weren't treated fairly and that the friend really didn't understand the predicament that the friend was in and what we're
Right.
looking for. Because remember, Deirdre, these in this book, in Estrange, what we're looking for is not family, because that's assigned to us, but the
Right.
women we choose. So
Right.
we choose these friends. So because we choose them, we hold the bar very high. And
Yeah.
we say to ourselves, the men, they come and go, the children grow up, even the grandchildren grow up. Women would say to me, and women would start with new friends at every stage of their lives, and and yet make the same miscalculations at 70 that they did at 35, because we present a certain way, often women,
Mm.
for our friends, just as we do in a love relationship.
True.
But the idea, remember Golden Girls or Sex in the City? Yes. So we're looking for solace and comfort and understanding. And what you
Mhm.
told me about your friend is really a situation where she didn't understand your side of the story.
Right, absolutely. She did not understand what was,
Yeah.
and as hard as I tried to make her understand, it's like she refused to. She just took it as a personal affront
And then you
that
ghosted her. And then you ghosted her.
yeah,
So
not when yeah, yeah,
because
and I mean, I
that
was
that's something I also found in my study in my book is that women don't really like confrontation. And it's often very hard to sit down with a friend and say, look, here's what you did. And then she says, here's what you. And often instead, there's what I would call an inciting incident, which is what you just described at that lunch,
yes,
at that where you didn't even know, right, about being there. And then
right,
after that, it just, you were almost stronger for leaving it.
yeah, I was
And
like,
that's the new spin that you didn't say, "Oh my goodness, I failed. What could have gone better here? What did I do?" But instead to say, "Enough. It's enough.
yeah,
This has
yeah.
been building up and I'm ready to estrange."
Yeah, yeah. It was seeming like the relationship was becoming one-sided. But anyway, yeah. I I just that but I will tell you, for the 2 female relationships that I've actually had that actually came to an end, it's very painful.
It's so painful. I
Very pain
I found in listening to these women, and I also did a questionnaire at the end of the book, that there's really a grieving process. This is really grief. It's the form of grief. So the question is, what am I getting from this friendship? And would I be better off without her? So it's like any
yeah.
breakup in our lives. To be estranged is very painful. And
Yes,
you miss the
yes,
person. And women talk to me again, all different women spoke to me about wanting to belong. Women love to belong to a group. Women
yeah,
love to congregate and said, this is our cause. This is the reason we get together. This is our sorority when we're young. So that really prevails throughout our lives for every different stage of our life. So to lose that friend and the time and the shared yearnings and secret is really like having a hole in your life. Or if life is a pie for women, it's a slice that's gone. And as I said in the beginning, these are really about, this book is about very close friendships.
yes,
Really,
yeah.
really the ones that count the most. where we say, what would
Right.
we do without her? And then end up without her.
Let's go into mental health because we all need friendships, part of having good mental health. How do you handle the breakup of these friendships as far as mental health is concerned?
Many of the women with whom I spoke said that they felt they had learned a great deal from the friendship and how it went awry.
Right.
And so they felt more discerning and careful with new friends and felt that they would know the red flags.
Mm,
Excuse
mm,
me. They felt that they had learned enough. And then some said, I didn't learn anything. Look, another I've had two terrible breakups or three. But for the ones who really learned something, it meant that they were evolving by leaving the friend. And there's also, as we talked about it before, some kind of calming in knowing that you grew apart or that you no longer look at the world the same way or that
yeah,
what she did was a very serious betrayal. So
right.
in terms of mental health, we factor in when we miss the friend what really went wrong. And in doing so, we learn more about ourselves and we're
Mhm.
stronger and we
Yeah,
also hopefully know what to look for in the next
absolutely.
friendship.
Absolutely. Susan, I really appreciate you taking out your time today to come and talk to me about this very important subject. Again, as I say that it's rarely addressed, if ever. And I just thank you for taking that interest in writing this book. And it is called Estranged: How Strained Female Friendships Are Mended or Ended. We will have links to this book in our podcast show notes and in the video description box on YouTube. Susan Shapiro Barrett, thank you so much for joining me today.
Deirdre, it's been a pleasure. I really had fun talking to you, and you know so much about this too.
I've had friendships for a very long time. I'm experienced. Thank you.
Thank you.